So this is 1.2a, College Algebra, and the name of this section is called Functions and Graphs. So you've worked with functions again, but we're going to go a lot deeper into them in these sections here. So top of page 75, the ordered pairs express a relationship or correspondence between the first and second coordinates. Okay, so those are the ordered pairs at the bottom of page 74. There's a correspondence. So for every x, there is a y. All right, so let's look exactly at what a function is. A function, middle of page 75 in the blue, a function is a correspondence between a first set called the domain, and we've talked about the domain being like the x, and a second set called the range, such that each member of the domain corresponds to exactly one member of the range. All right, so let's look at that, what that means. One element in the domain, or any element in the domain, there is exactly one member in the range to which it corresponds. So there's my domain, my set called the domain. All right, so what I'm saying here is that for each member or element in the domain, it has to correspond or be attached to or have as a member one member of the range. So let's say we have a bunch of numbers over here that are my range. Okay, this is a function right there because that -6 attaches itself to only one element. And if we have just a whole list here, that is a function because one x or one number in the domain corresponds to only one number here. Okay, so let's make a little bit of a change here to make sure you've got this. So let me put my numbers up here again. All right, 3 goes to 9. 2 goes to 9. 1 goes to 9. Okay, it doesn't matter how many numbers go with a number over here, as long as this number only goes to one number. If I put that 3 goes to 9 and 8, this whole thing is no longer a function because one of my members of my domain correspond with two members of my range. As long as this only corresponds to one of these, it doesn't matter how many other numbers also correspond to this. So I can have my 6 go to my 10, this 6 here go down here, and as long as there's only one arrow going from each one of these numbers, it doesn't matter what numbers these are. Okay, makes it a function. Let's see, another way you can do this is if I give a list of x's and y's. So let's say I give some graphing coordinates here. Okay, that's one set. Let me give you another set here. Okay, so let's look at the top one here. All right, this top one has a 9 going to a -5, but it also has a 9 going to a 5 and a 2 going to a 4. So notice what we've got here. This 9 goes to two different ranges, two different y values. That means it is not a function. So notice here, whenever the x, when you have a whole list of coordinates, whenever the x occurs more than once, this is not a function. Down here, a -2 goes to a 5 goes to a 7, a 0 goes to a 1, a 4 goes to a -2. Each one of my x values are different, And each one of my x values then, because they're different, it doesn't matter what the y value is. We don't care what kind of an attachment or correspondence each one of the x's have. They can be attached. I mean, I could write this as -2, 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, and 6, 5. Okay? It doesn't matter that my y values are the same, that my range is the same, as long as each one of my x's are different. If I were to write this in chart form, there's my x's, my domain. Each one of these goes to the number 5. But the key thing is, each one of these only goes to one number. If this 2 went to a 5 and it went to a 6, then this thing is no longer a function. It's not that this isn't a function. The entire thing ceases to be a function because of that. Okay? So dealing with functions, we're going to come up with a concise notation for functions, or a way to write those. So instead of writing something like y equals x squared minus 9x minus 12. All right, let's look at what we've got here. We've got a domain. We've got numbers that we can put in here for x, and when we put numbers in here for x, so if we put a 2 in here for x, so 2 squared minus 9 times 2 minus 12, we get a y value then of 4 minus 18 minus 12, so negative 30 plus 4, negative 26. So when x is 2, y is negative 26. Okay, if I did that right. All right, and I can put other numbers in here, a 3, and it's going to kick out a certain y value. Put in here an 8, and it's going to kick out a certain y value, and notice what's going to happen here. What's going to happen is this 2 will always give me a negative 26. This 2 will never give me a negative 26 and another number. That would mean it would not be a function. Okay, so I can put a 2 in here and get a negative 26. I may have another number I can put in and also get a negative 26, but this 2 will never give me anything but a negative 26 when I put it into this equation, meaning that it's a function. So instead of writing a y, we are going to write a symbol that looks like that. Okay, so all we're doing basically, if truth be told, is we're just replacing the y with that f parentheses x, which is, the way you say that is f of x, or f at x. So what that means is, if we've got this equation here, and let's say I put f of negative 2 here, so I put a negative 2 in for x. What that means is, when I look at my equation over here, what we're interested in doing is putting a negative 2 in for x and finding out what our range is. So f of negative 2 equals negative 2 squared minus 9 times negative 2 minus 12. So f of negative 2 equals 4 plus 18 minus 12. So f of negative 2 equals 2210. So whenever x is negative 2, y, or f of x, is going to be 10. So x, instead of xy, it's x, f of x. Okay, so for the most part, for what we're doing right now, we're just replacing the y value with an f of x. And the f of x, all that is what is our answer going to be if we put in whatever number happens to be inside that parenthesis for x. So if you look at example 4. Example 4 says we have a function, and our function is that. Okay, there's my function. A says, what am I going to get if my x is 0? And so what I like to do is rewrite everything and put in 0 for x, and then say f of 0 equals 3. Okay? And that's what you get for an answer. The next one says f of negative 7. So that's saying, what am I going to get when I put negative 7 in place of my x? Well, I'm going to get f of negative 7 equals 108. So what does that mean? That means when I put negative 7 in for the x value, my y value is going to be 108. That point, there's going to be a point right there. Also, right here, if I put in 0 for x, I'm going to get 3 for my y value. And you just graph these points then, and when you graph these points, you're going to get a graph of that equation. So all we're doing at this point is plugging in numbers for my x values. All right, let's look at one. Let's look at C here. C has a little bit different part to it, but if it's done the exact same way. So don't let the letters mess you up here. 5A. And again, this is why I write everything out. So this is going to be 2 times 25a squared minus this is as simple as I can go. So when my x is 5a, my f of x is 50a squared minus 5a plus 3. So can't really graph that, can we? But that's okay. As long as we did it right, we're good to go there. All right, so let's erase this and keep going. Let's do D here using the same, takes me a little bit of time to erase here, using the same equation there. F of a minus 4 equals 2 times a minus 4 squared. So we're just replacing the x value with a minus 4. That's all it's asking us to do. So then we've got a minus 4 squared, so we get 2 times a squared minus 8a plus 16 minus. Okay, and you just keep going and you end up with 2a squared minus 17a plus 39. When you distribute this and then combine it with those, you get that for an answer. So when my x value is a minus 4, my y value is 2a squared minus 17a plus 39. All right, this took me a long time to get when I was taking this class in college because nobody really explained the whole function thing. So basically all we're doing is we're saying, what answer are we going to get when we plug the number here in for x? So if we said what is f of 2, what we're saying is what value are we going to get for y when we plug 2 in for each one of these x's? So if this says f of 2, that means plug this number in, substitute this number in for x, solve it, and that'll give you your y value. That's pretty much all we're doing right now. All right, so that's it for 1.2a, and we'll continue on.